welcome you here tonight. We're just a couple of minutes away from beginning the meeting. And before we begin, I'd invite you to stand and join me in the pledge, and then Randall Harriman will bring the invocation.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the blessings you've given to our city. We thank you for all the people that volunteer their time and attention to your city, Lord. I pray that you'll be with us tonight in our decision making and let us make these decisions that are good in your sight, Lord. In Jesus Christ's name, amen.
All right, thank you, Randall. All right, I will now call this regular meeting of the Springdale City Council to order. This is Tuesday, August 13th, 2024, and we'll ask our city clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Sprouse.
Here.
Brian Powell.
Here.
Amelia Taldo.
Here.
Jeff Watson. Mike Overton.
Here.
Mike Lawson.
Here.
Rex Bailey.
Present.
Randall Harriman.
Here.
Mark Fidgeroos. Ernest Kate.
Here. All right, great. Good to see everybody here. We're full strength tonight. We beat the summer this time, and all got here. We're at item 4. For those of y'all following along, this is the agenda item each meeting that the council sets aside for comments from our residents. If we have any residents that would like to address the council concerning an item that is not already on tonight's agenda, we would invite you to come to the podium. Please clearly state your name and address. We ask that you keep your comments brief and understand that the council won't take action tonight on what you bring forward. Is there anyone that would like to address the council concerning an item that is not already on tonight's agenda? Y'all come on up.
Hi, Council.
Hi.
I'm Spencer Ordonez. I live 508 Maple Drive. We're here, my neighbor here. We have a concern with the safety on our street as far as we live over on Maple, over beyond the hospital there. And a lot of people go up and down the street speeding very, very fast, more than the allotted speed limit. Also,
You're talking about on Maple Avenue?
Yeah, Maple Drive.
On Maple Drive?
Yes.
Because I think I received an email, and I was thinking it was about Maple Avenue as well.
It was regarding Maple Avenue, Maple Drive, and then Quan also.
Okay,
Kind of the surrounding area, there's a lot of,
okay.
specifically on Maple Drive, a lot of people cut through there instead of going on Thompson, so we got a lot of traffic that kind of cuts through that street, and numerous times that I've seen on our street, they've just 40 miles an hour, probably 50. Sometimes people just burn it out. But also a concern about lighting. So a lot of our neighbors have had their vehicles broken into on numerous occasions throughout the years. And just something that I know in Quant there are some street lights there along. Maple Drive does not have any at all. But that's something I guess the planning commission would have to figure out and it might be in that master plan in that section, but.
Usually, those are older neighborhoods that didn't require street lighting when they were developed. I mean, you're talking about much older neighborhoods.
Yes.
Great neighborhoods, but older.
Yes, sir.
And James, do you know if we have, I know sometimes we can work things out with some existing poles, or I'm not even sure if the utilities are
There's no
overhead.
poles on our street.
There are no poles? We're all underground? Okay. All right. We'll look into it. Mostly usually now in those neighborhoods, those established neighborhoods, they're, as part of street projects, I know that we've got, I don't think Ben's in here, but I know as one of our bond projects, we're doing Shiloh Street from Maple Avenue to Huntsville. And I'm sure that will include some lighting, but I'm not, we can sure look at it. James, let's look at any possibilities we might have to help the lighting situation. I live in an older neighborhood like that as well, and we don't have street lights, sidewalks,
Yeah.
but but I take it upon myself to light up my house, you know, and that may be the best option if someone's having problems. Certainly, our police chief is here, and I saw him writing down, taking notes, and we'll try and, there are some things we can do to try and address the speeding. Quant is a school zone, I assume, still a school zone, isn't it?
Yes, sir. It is.
Even though that's changed to a pre-K center, but I think it's still so there'd be some pretty hefty, that's a low speed limit on Quant, at least during school hours. And then Maple Avenue, we did some things to help slow down traffic there in front of the hospital, and that seems to have helped. I don't know, there's still exceptions. You know, you can't fix stupid, and there's people that'll still.
Very true.
So we'll, I'm sure Chief will pass that along, and we'll try and get some patrol and watch things a little closer on those streets. And, but the lighting thing, I think James is gonna have to look into and see what options we might have and where we can.
I will have one request. Don't make that street a one-way street. Just, yeah, that'd be ridiculous for us.
Maple Drive.
Maple Drive, yeah. Because
I
I know
don't
there's
know
a
of
lot
any.
of.
Has there been any discussion about that, Patsy, ever that you've been aware of?
Good. If there was ever like a.
Councilman Overton, who doesn't happen to be in your ward, but we do elect at large, just said that would be a great idea, so.
Check, okay.
So are
Thank-
they,
yeah,
are they
go-
pulling off of Quant and going down Maple Drive to Emma? Is that where you're having,
To Maple Ave.
to Maple
So
Avenue?
it's a lot of people maybe coming from the hospital, or from Quant to the hospital back way, but,
So the section of Maple Drive we're talking about is there where, between Quant and Maple Avenue.
Well, sorry, I'm Tina Matsubara. I'm Spencer's neighbor here on Maple Drive. And I walk around there frequently, and I've almost been hit twice. I mean, I get that there's no sidewalks, there's no room for sidewalks, but talking with other neighbors, it's on the other side of Quant to that Maple.
Oh, okay, south of Quant.
Yes, and so this is, according to the neighbors around there, I mean, it's a major, major problem, and it's been going on for years and years. I've only been there about 5 years, but, I mean, people are angry. They're throwing things at cars and screaming at cars and chasing them down because
Okay.
and it's usually repeat offenders. Like, people are like, I can tell you.
You think it's
cars
people
that-
that live in the area?
we don't know
Okay.
who
Well,
they are, but
we'll-
that's a cut through, so that's the only way.
Our police department will kind of watch that, and James, from Public Works, there may be, I don't know, signage doesn't usually help a lot, because people that do what you're talking about, they don't care what the signs say anyway, they don't pay any attention to it. But maybe there are some other things we could look at physically to help slow things down a little bit. But thanks for bringing that to our attention, and we'll see what we can do to help.
Okay,
All right?
thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on then to item 5, approval of minutes. Council, you've had an opportunity to look those over. If there are no changes or additions, I'd entertain a motion to approve them as they were presented.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. Item 6, procedural motions. What's your pleasure?
I move for A and B.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for A and B. Roll call, please. Oh, never mind. We've gone to electronic voting, and you would think I'd be used to it by now. We've only been doing it a few months, but I'll still get into my old habits. I'll call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you. Item 7, Springdale Chamber of Commerce Quarterly Report. Jay Seago is here. Jay?
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council, leaders, and guests. Here's some highlights from the second quarter of this year. So 2,200 new jobs have been created since January. City unemployment rate at the end of June was 2.7%, which is the second lowest in the state. Our July 2024 sales tax receipts totaled $2.1 million, which is an increase of 3.9% over July of last year. Total year-to-date receipts are up 2.8%, totaling more than $14 million. So you can see second quarter construction remained high for both commercial and residential work, with significant residential permit numbers. Chamber completed the first 15 workforce development videos and is continuing more in the second half of this calendar year. The Marshallese Youth Initiative continued through the summer, providing students the opportunity to attend Camp War Eagle at the Jones Center, and will resume academic programming this fall. For new construction and ongoing construction, Teslar Software recently broke ground on their new headquarters along Jean George Boulevard. Premium Brands has begun initial foundation work, plans to formally break ground on September 5th at the Kendrick Industrial Park. On the west side of town, 3 restaurants are in varying stages of construction. Panera Bread's closest to completion. The next is Pickleman's Cafe. Both of these are on the corner of Sunset and Jean George. Across Jean George, Chipotle Mexican Grill has begun construction. And additionally, Arkansas Children's Northwest Hospital has begun initial construction on their expansion project. A couple items downtown, Luther George Park has ribbon cutting scheduled for October 11th. And then Market Center of the Ozarks and First Security Bank's downtown Emma location are both targeting completion by the end of this calendar year. Beyond this update, we continue to work multiple projects that will prove positive growth for Springdale and become good community teammates. So, pending your questions, concludes my brief.
How many jobs is Premium? Well over 100?
It's over 100, yes, sir.
Other questions?
In children's, what's the anticipated time for that to be completed?
I don't have the time frame quite yet, but they've started the work on it. Yep,
Are they pushing dirt on that Premium right now?
they are.
I thought they were,
Yep.
yeah.
They've already started the dirt work, but they'll do the formal ceremony here in a couple weeks.
Anyone else? Thanks, Jay.
Sir?
Good news. All right, item 8, Planning Commission report and recommendations. Patsy Christie, Director of Planning and Community Development. It's all yours, Patsy.
The first item is a replat of Lot 1B, Block 4 of Sam's addition to the city of Springdale. They're creating one separate lot, 2 lots actually on this. Planning Commission reviewed the request, and the title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance accepting the replat of Lot 1B, Block 4, Sam's Club's addition to the city of Springdale, Arkansas, declaring an emergency.
Move the ordinance passed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Any other questions or comments, council? Anyone in the audience need to speak to this? All right, this is a call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
The emergency clause be adopted.
We have a motion and a second to approve the emergency clause. Let's call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
And as the usual case, the emergency clauses are added because of their pending action on the properties. The next one is a replat of Lot 3 and 4 of Block 3 of Sunrise subdivision. This is actually combining 2 lots into one. Planning Commission reviewed this request and recommends approval. Title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance accepting the replat of Lot 3 and 4, Block 3 Sunrise subdivision to the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and declaring an emergency.
Move the ordinance to be adopted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Any other comments or questions? Anyone in the room? All right, call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
The emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
All right, call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you. Items 9 and 10, I will turn over to our city attorney, Ernest Cate. Ernest?
Thank you. Item 9 is an appeal of the Planning Commission's denial of rezoning request on property located at 2944 North 48th Street. The request was to rezone it from C1 to C2. They did file a notice, a timely notice of appeal. This was at the June 4th Planning Commission meeting. It was on the agenda at a prior council meeting, they requested that it be tabled. We said we would do so if they would re-notify adjacent property owners. They have provided proof that they have done that. And I believe that Mr. Gibbs is here representing the property owner on this appeal. I think the map, you have the map?
Do you guys have the map?
Is this mine? Okay.
I believe the vote was 8-0 with one recusal at Planning Commission, deny the rezoning request.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Well, I appreciate your time and consideration. I represent 1329 LLC. My name is Darren Gibbs. I'm an attorney on behalf of that company as well as Pinnacle Roofing, which operates its roofing company from lots owned by 1329 LLC. We've requested to rezone from C1 to C2 for a couple reasons. Obviously, we feel like it's good for our business. Pinnacle Roofing is existing. It's been around Springdale a long time. It's a local roofing company. They hire local people for sales and for installation of roofs across Northwest Arkansas, and they chose Springdale in this location because it's convenient and it benefits their business tremendously. And obviously, this is the city of Springdale and City Council, so hopefully we can convince you that it's good for the city as well to move this from a C1 to C2.
Don't stray too far from that mic, okay? Because we want to be sure, we've got people watching online too.
I understand.
Thank you.
Okay. So Pinnacle Roofing operates its there's two lots at issue, two parcels, excuse me. A southern lot and a northern lot. And Pinnacle, when it reapplied for its license, business license over the last year or so, it was denied as a result of its use. Pinnacle is obviously a trade, and C1 is not a permitted trade within the C1 zoning construct. It would be permitted under C2. Pinnacle operates its administrative offices in this house on the southern parcel that 1329 owns. And as I understand it, there's really no issue with this part of the business. It is purely administrative. It has their sales office, they deal with insurance companies, they have a meeting room. This is 100% an administrative office that would fit within the C1 construct. This driveway, which Pinnacle installed after it bought the properties in 2019, is basically the dividing line between the north and south parcel. They repaved it, they improved it, and now what we're looking at is from the driveway, sort of up a steep hill, in between North 48th Street and the warehouse, which is the issue on the northern parcel. There's a sign on the building kind of at the top of the hill you see there. This is looking up the drive from 48th Street toward the warehouse. Really, there's two warehouse buildings. The one in front, which is white, and then there's a kind of a more rustic, silverish one in the back that's older. This is looking at the newer warehouse. What do they use these things for? Primarily for materials, not for installation, but for little extras that kind of come off a project. It's a roofing company. They're not building roofs here, but they have things that come off of a roof that are extras, siding, flashing, something like that, maybe some extra shingles from a project. They're not building anything here. It really is just a storage building. Here's a look at the interior. And I think if anybody were to walk in there at any time, they'd essentially see this. More or less, this is what they keep in there on a regular basis. Maybe they would have some more things one day. Maybe they would have less. But this really is just some extra things that their foremen or their workers need, maybe just to finish off a piece of a roof because it was left over from another project. This is an office inside one of the warehouses that the foreman can use to fill out paperwork. Previous uses for the site, which is important. Before 2019, probably about a decade before, Pinnacle Car Service used this site to both store their vehicles, repair their vehicles, change the oil. As I understand it, they kind of created a mess following Pinnacle, not related company, by the way, Following Pinnacle Car Services use, and immediately prior to 2019, there was a tree service. A tree company was there. And I think they did make a mess. And they may have precipitated the city's desire to change this. I don't know that, but they did make a mess of it. And they had, oil leaking down the hill and barrels from chainsaw oil, and it was not good. When Pinnacle or 1329 bought it, that's when they decided it's great for us, great location. We're a similar use to what was there, far less impact, and obviously it met their convenience needs like I've previously discussed. While they were building the administrative house and renovating it, it was not useful. It was probably condemnable when they bought it. And so they were working with the city for permitting there. And I know that one of Pinnacle's issues with the denial was, look, we've worked with the city here, and we feel like they were fully aware of what we were doing, but we feel like we were meeting all of the obligations from the city. And given the prior existing trades and uses, and as well as the renovations, it felt like we were doing right by the city, and we were meeting our obligations. So like I said, current uses, administrative, storage, no assembly, no, when I say materials drop off, they're not bringing all of the roofing materials to this site and then transporting them elsewhere. Materials are dropped off from Meeks or some other supply company to a house or to a commercial building. They only operate during business hours. They have similar uses to a lot of the other companies up and down 48th Street. So if you start, from the Elm Springs Road exit and go north to the quarry on the little strip of road that's 48th Street, you see trades and services all up and down that street. You see a plumbing business. There's something called, there's an electric business, I believe. There's a couple of contractors. There's a boring company. And so Pinnacle fits right in. A sod company.
Aaron, do you care if I interrupt you for just one second? I'm a little confused on the relationship between 1329 LLC and Pinnacle, because you said Pinnacle, that 1329 LLC is the home of Pinnacle, but then you said Pinnacle bought the property. I'm lost there.
I apologize. 1329 is the actual landowner. Pinnacle operates from 1329. It's leased to 1329 leases the property to Pinnacle.
Pinnacle didn't really buy the property.
Pinnacle did not buy the property.
They're just
1329
leasing it from 1329. Okay, thank you. The whole, all of it, both sides of the road.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. It's Pinnacle is the operating business from 1329's property.
Yeah, okay. And also, while I interrupted, if you don't mind, how long they been operating there, and why is this just now coming up?
They've been operating there since 2019. Exact month, I don't know, but from 2019 forward.
You said that they came there in 2019, so why is this just now an issue?
They had a previous business office which held the license for the city of Springdale.
I can clarify that.
And-
My understanding is they had a business license at an address on Wagon Wheel Road with the use unit 21 Trades and Services, and the property was zoned C2. And they relocated to this property on 48th Street, and the property is on C1. And a Trades and Services use unit 21, which was the use unit they had the business license for, is not a permitted or a conditional use in a C1. So they were advised they had to rezone the property C2. We started these discussions in March of this year, is when it came to our attention that they didn't have a business license.
So bottom line, they've been there since 2019 when they shouldn't have been?
They're shaking their head, yes. I wasn't aware of, till March, we started having these discussions. So they were advised that they either needed to rezone it or stop, because, if they moved from Wagon Wheel, they had a business license for use unit 21, but the property they were operating on Wagon Wheel was zoned C2. So that's why they're asking for C2.
And that's why you, a while ago, mentioned that the city should have known what the plan was.
Part of the reason. And part of that other reason was they feel like they were working with the city to renovate that property and getting permits and having to get it inspected before they opened for business. And so that would have been in 2018, 19, following the purchase. It's fine. So up and down 48th Street, yeah, we've got trades. And so this is a similarly situated business, which I know is an important consideration for rezoning. We don't want to rezone something that doesn't fit. There's a sod company down the street that operates 18-wheelers and big trucks in and out of there all the time. It blocks traffic on North 48. Pinnacle isn't doing that. There aren't any other C1 zones along North 48, which we feel like is a little strange. I understand that there's a big residential neighborhood coming in, I believe, to the west. And south. Yeah. But the rest of the zoning along North 48th is very much trade and services or similar agricultural. This is a map of the actual distances between the various other zones. So in 2023, the city approved C2 zoning for a plumbing company about 4,000 feet to the south. And then about, I think it's 1,800 feet to the north, 0.3 miles, there's another section of C2 zoning. And so it would not be a unusual rezoning request. There are other like zoned areas in this neighborhood. And if we're going to rezone something pretty close within 2023, we think it makes sense along this kind of artery and given the future master plan of the city and the street plan of the city, that we think about this as C2. And so I've circled on this street plan map the location of a proposed artery that's going to cross 49, almost adjacent to the area we're talking about. And so you'll have C2 zoning to the north, and if we rezone these current parcels we're discussing, you'll have C2 zoning to the south, which I think fits within that planning idea of we want to have zoning at a major arterial section, and this would fit within the city's proposed street plan, which they just adopted last year. And I would think that based on making granting the C2 zoning to the plumbing company down the street, I would think that was part of the consideration, because it's not on a major arterial zone now, it's kind of at the end of a side street, but it will be. And so going forward, I would think that it makes sense to consider this area as C2 zoning for the future. That's all I got. I appreciate your time. If I can answer any questions, be more than happy to.
I have a question, Mr. Gibbs.
Yes, sir.
I was looking at the notes, and I believe the notes on your original appeal stated that the buyer and the realtor, when this property was bought, just assumed they could operate. They didn't check the zoning on it.
I think that the zoning may have changed during that whole process, because I think it was 2018. I could be wrong about that. But during the shopping, buying process.
But I was just curious, because I think that's what the record indicated. It was already zoned, and that the buyer and, I think it stated the buyer and the realtor both just assumed they could operate there. But Pinnacle has not had a operating license at that location since 2019, correct?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
I think Sharon's looking for something.
It was rezoned to C1 in 2018, according to the Planning Commission minutes.
That's accurate.
I'm a little bit confused on the comprehensive land use plan versus the street plan that Mr. Gibbs has brought up. It seems like this comprehensive land use plan is not recommended for this kind of rezoning, but then he stated with the the new street going through, that it would most likely be C2. Is that correct or incorrect?
Well, you know, we just updated the land use, the master street plan. We got to update the land use plan to go with it. But just because it's shown on there as an arterial like Don Tyson Parkway, it's not stripped out. It's commercial all the way through. So you can't automatically assume that just because county line's going through there that we'll make all that a commercial area. Some of those areas that they talked about where there's commercial going on have been there long before they were annexed into the city. We pretty well held commercial development, C2 type development, closer to the intersections at Elm Springs Road, closer to the intersections at Wagon Wheel. Now, as you've always heard me say, just remember, if you rezone it to C2, it's not just for this applicant. So anything that's allowed in a C2 can go into that zone once it's rezoned. And I think when we talked about this before and went to C1, we were holding it to activities that were a little bit more conducive in a neighborhood area like they were, rather than the stuff that would go on in a standard C2 zone. Their business license was denied in July of '23. So they've been operating at least since '23. I believe when they got their permits to remodel the offices, they were told at the time it was for offices only. There couldn't be any warehouses at that time. We were told there weren't any warehouses, yet there was a sign that said warehouse. So this has been going on for quite some time. And they moved from a location that was C2 to a location that was C1. They knew what their business license was for a use unit 21 when they had it in a C2 zone, so.
Patsy, they do have C2 north and south, is that right?
Well, not till you get down all the way down to Bob Mills. There's C2 down there. There's C2 up at Wagon Wheel. Those are the two extremes. None of that in between has been rezoned to C2. The plumbing place is at the intersection, closer to the development that's occurring on the south
And you
end.
think those both came into the city that way?
No, the plumbing place has just recently been rezoned.
Okay.
The boring company, the sod company, all that was in existence. The tree service that worked from there has never had a business license at that location. The transportation services that were at that location, we worked with quite a bit trying to get them to bring it into compliance. They never had a business license at that location either. So those prior uses were never, had business license to operate there either.
Was the denial because of the zoning
Right.
for the
It was
business
the
license in
request-
2023?
This is the first time we've had a rezoning request. They didn't come in to have it rezoned previously. Just now coming in to have it rezoned to C2, though their business license application was denied in July of '23.
And that denial was not based on zoning?
It was based on the zoning. The zoning was incorrect. Yeah.
No, do we have any adjacent property owners have issues with?
You have a
Okay.
copy of the minutes from the planning commission meeting. And quite honestly, there's so many things going on, I can't tell you if we did or not. You'll have to look at the minutes and see what it says.
So the majority of activity on this property is office, and they store their trucks there, I guess?
They don't even really store their trucks there. I think they.
Will you step in the microphone, please?
I'm sorry. Excuse me. The vast majority of the activities are administrative in the White House.
So in the warehouses, they're just keeping junk, is what you're saying?
Keeping leftovers, keeping junk. There will be a trailer there that could be there overnight. But most of their workers take their trucks home and
Patsy,
personal use.
could we protect
let
the
me-
property zoning
let me
if we
answer
did a
that first.
use unit? If we did like a special use for the property? I know you're saying it's not.
Well, trades and services a lot of times have an office and a warehouse where they store equipment, they store supplies. That's what trades and services is. No, they don't build roofs there, but plumbing companies don't build plumbing there either, but that's what trades and services is. We don't have a way to create a special use unless you rewrite the zoning use unit for use unit 21 of trades and services and take roofing out of that and putting it into its own. I would recommend we be very careful about how we modify for one specific case when we have trades and services all over town that operate in C2.
When did right off the top, when they started, when that neighborhood to the south was approved? Is that SF2 or 1?
It's SF2, and it's been going on a couple of years. Yeah, we've had a preliminary plat that started several, many years ago. 2 or 3, probably around the same time the rest of this started, I don't know.
Okay.
But the land use plan shows all that area as being residential development, not being stripped out as commercial down through there.
So Patsy, let me ask you about that land use plan. How long have we had that land use plan showing that to be residential? Is that since the interstate been put in?
Since
Because
the interstate was put in, yes. Uh-huh.
it seems,
Look at
it
the
almost,
other
just
side.
looking at this, it almost kind of looks like, right along the interstate, it's going to be commercial, isn't it?
Well, look at the other side of the interstate. You have Pinewood subdivision backs up to the interstate on that side. I don't think it's an assumption that we can make all of the interstate is going to be stripped out for commercial development. Quite honestly, there needs to be something done to 48th Street in that section before we let a lot of commercial development going in there, because it's 2 lanes in a lot of places, not much more than that. But just because it's adjacent to the interstate doesn't automatically mean that it needs to be commercial.
Got a lot of new homes going in there.
That's a lot of new homes going in there, right? There's 3 subdivisions there and quite a bit of development going on in that area. Neighborhood commercial is probably as dense a type of commercial we would want along there that serves the needs of the people who live in that area. You could have a daycare, you could have a dry cleaners, you could have things like that serve the neighborhood, because that's what C1 is for, is neighborhood commercial, which would serve that area that's in there. Heavier commercial like trades and services doesn't necessarily take care of the neighborhood. It's for a larger area and more intense commercial uses. And we usually put those closer to intersections where there's other commercial development.
So Darren, what is that commercial C2 property to the north that you referred to? What is that?
It is licensed contractors. Contractors.
It's where where they sell, Allied Plumbing, no, it's in the A1 on the other side. It's where the golf cart place is. It's in that little triangle between the road, wagon wheel, and
It's the only C2 to the
think
north
that's
is
the
where the
C2
golf
you're
cart
talking about
place
up there.
is?
There's two C2s. There's one that's, the 0.35 miles to the north. It's zone C2.
and somebody will have to look that one up. I can't tell you off the top of my head.
And if you go further to the north, I think that's the golf course. But I think
What do you think the one is closer to it? You said contractor. You
I
mean
think
like
it's
a building
I
contractor?
think it's a building contractor. I could be mistaken about that, but I think that's what it is.
Okay, it's just adjacent to the property to the north of it that's along the floodplain. It's at the intersection of where Willow Road comes into that, and it's a long, narrow strip right through there where Willow Road comes in there. That's the last piece that you get. The rest of that's all residential or agricultural uses for the time being.
That's on the east side of 48,
Yeah.
between 48.
It's between 48th and 49, yeah, in that one little odd piece up there. And then you go further to the north, there's a little piece up there. Allied Plumbing is on the west side, but it's still in A1. And then there's that little corner in there that has where you buy golf courts. That one's in there too, yeah.
So in that A1, are they,
They're non-conforming use is what they are. And the Allied Plumbing place that's in A1, and it was there before it was annexed into the city. The C2 that's up there at the north was rezoned in 2014.
One of the issues that we have also with these current parcels being zone C1, and yes, they are adjacent to a developing residential zone, but there's no access there. There's no roads connecting the residential area to the C1 area. So yes, it would be a neighborhood service area, but there's no access right now. And 48th is the commercial zone adjacent to 49 that the master street plan says is going to have a major arterial connector soon, or at least in the plans. And so we think that the C2, again, would make sense going forward in the future, given what's there now and what's going to be there in the future.
So I need someone to tell me how to think here on this. You know, to me, it kind of looks commercial along the interstate, and I know Patsy said it doesn't have to be commercial, but, you know, I kind of fought commercial down there close to my house for a long time, and it turned commercial, you know, and, because it's along the interstate. But, so I kind of see that, at least that thought process. The other thought process, though, that I need help with is the fact that they've been there for 5 years, and they're non-conforming for 5 years. And I don't know, is that something that we just overlook, or those things happen? Or, Mike, help me out. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, my thought is, you know, anytime you go into business, we all have to have a business license, period. We know that going in, so it doesn't matter what location. I think the big problem is just like in those notes. They had one before where they were, and the owner just assumed that this would be C2 zoning. Said he and his realtor, they didn't check anything out. Nothing was checked, and it's understandable when they were doing the remodeling on that house to turn it into an office, that was permissible as an office, and they were informed that that's the only thing it could be in that zone. So they knew full well what the area would support and what the zoning called for.
And respectfully to add to that, they also did the driveway and redid the road and also.
Well, they had to
cleaned
get up their warehouse,
the
sure they did.
all at the same time too. So that's also the context of that remodel period in working with the city.
Make a
You're
motion
not-
to grant the rezone.
Second. You mean overturn the planning commission and overturn the planning commission? I need to press the button. The motion would be to overturn the planning commission's denial of the rezoning request. If the motion was to carry, it would overturn the planning commission's denial, and we would bring an ordinance back to the next city council meeting that would rezone the property.
That's what I said, yeah.
Okay. So make sure.
And we got a second? Any further discussion or questions? All right, is everybody clear on the motion? A yes would mean you vote to overturn the appeal? Overturn the planning commission, I'm sorry. So the appeal would be successful. Okay, all right. Anyone in the audience need to speak to this? Any neighbors or anybody concerned? Interested? Okay. All right, call for the vote. It's what I figured. This is a tough one for me. I understand the issue with the I understand your arguments, but it's tough for me. We've got a body of planning commissioners who voted 8-0 to deny this, and that I don't overturn that lightly. And I also have some concerns about the neighborhood being built to the south. And so I'm not going to vote on this.
So the planning commission's decision is upheld. Reason being, it takes 5 votes to overturn the planning commission.
I appreciate everybody's time and consideration.
Thank you, sir. All right, next one's yours too.
Thank you. If you'll recall, at the July 23rd City Council meeting, there was an appeal of the Planning Commission's denial of a final plat for Phase 2 of Cottages at Clear Creek subdivision. After much discussion, it was tabled to this meeting, and at the time that it was tabled, there was a discussion that if the developer was to provide the necessary information to satisfy the planning department that we would also bring an ordinance to where if the planning commission's denial was overturned, you could go ahead and pass the ordinance tonight. That is also on the agenda. Hopefully that makes sense the way I described it, but Patsy can correct me if I'm wrong. So that's where we are at. In other words, you could do this with one motion, should you choose to do so, to overturn planning commission and pass the ordinance approving the final plat with an emergency clause.
Yes, with an emergency clause. Mayor, Council, Will Clark, I'm here on behalf of my client, NWALD LLC. I don't want to recite the procedural history because I know it's, even though it's short, it's somewhat tortured. But, and I think we can accomplish what we're here to do tonight in relatively short order. As the council will recall, we were here back in late July on an appeal of the Planning Commission's denial of the Phase 2 final plat of Cottages at Clear Creek. Our position in that appeal was simply that we had constructed a neighborhood that was consistent with the previously approved preliminary plat for that. And now that construction had been complete, consistent with the preliminary plat, the final plat had been submitted and was ripe for approval. At Planning Commission, there was hearty discussion, and the Phase 2 final plat was denied. The appeal was taken. We asserted the position again, and as Mr. Cate described, we had a lengthy and full discussion on the issues back in July. Since that time, after the meeting, my client and planning staff had a very productive meeting on August 1st, where 4 particular documents and pieces of information were identified as being necessary to be submitted to gain planning staff support for the approval. There was a quick turnaround on the production of that documentation. The meeting was concluded on August 1st. A confirmatory email was sent, which was responded to by planning staff on August 2nd. The deadline to produce the information was August 7th. All of the necessary and required information was in fact submitted. Planning staff acknowledged the submission on August 8th, and here we are now on August 13th, I think it is, to approve the final plat of Phase 2 Cottages at Clear Creek once and for all. I don't want to speak out of term, but I do think that we have planning staff's support in this position. They wanted to see some specific details. I put a lot of that in my letter to the mayor and council on August 12th, yesterday, to detail and describing, and it's in your packet of information, what was asked for and what in fact was provided. And now that we have given that, we would simply request that you support the appeal and approve the ordinance which has been submitted for your consideration.
Patsy, what's your position?
We did meet. We've had a long discussion. We've been kind of beating this thing to death, it seems like, since February. The final plat was amended to include the park in Phase 2, as it said in the PUD development plan. They submitted a bond for the construction of that playground. I think they've already started some of the work. I don't have any problem with that. We could have done this back in February had they done that. They chose not to, but we got it done now. They submitted a revised drawing of what we had from 2020 with a bunch of notes on it. They were going to do bioretention and some work along the creek and all those things that need to be done. They submitted that. They submitted some pretty pictures that goes with it. But to date, we still don't have all the design work. We do have a bond that shows, or a construction amount of $96,800 for bioretention 1, 2, 3, and 4, and some filter strip. Engineering has not had a chance to look at any of this stuff to see if it does what it's supposed to. It says it will be designed in accordance with the city's LID guidelines. That's all well and good. We haven't seen that yet. They do have the drainage easement that been requested so that the easement to the detention pond would be, we would have access to it because it's not included in Phase 2. So with all this submitted, I mean, I think we're to the point where if you guys want to approve it, we can approve the final plat tonight with the understanding that Ben and I don't sign it until we get all the rest of the stuff resolved. Meaning we've got to know what is being done with the bioswales, the bioretention and all that, and the bond is correct, and then we can sign it. If you're good with that, staff's good with that too.
Ben, are you comfortable with the changes that they propose, even though you haven't had a chance to look at it and give final approval? Are you comfortable with the apparent changes that they would be in compliance with the original PUD agreement?
I think so. The original PUD document included the term LID, but it didn't indicate exactly what level that was going to be. So, I think they're meeting the intent of it. We don't know exactly what kind of water quality we're going to get because we haven't had a chance to review that design. But overall, yeah, I think this is probably at a place where it could be approved.
You might tell the audience what LID means.
Low impact development. So it's just trying to use newer concepts to improve stormwater quality as well as quantity control.
So the approval of the engineering department and the planning department would be required in order for this ordinance to be fully adopted.
Will it be adopted? The plat won't be signed until we get.
For the plat, I'm sorry, not the ordinance, but for the plat. And the ordinance covers the plat.
And so what's the recourse if the plat's not signed?
Can't be filed.
How does that work? How does that work, Ernest? If we approve it, but we can tell them not to sign it? That
Actually,
sounds like we're not approving it.
quite honestly, every plat that is approved by this body, she is the last person to sign off on it, and it's always subject to staff comments, and she signs it once those comments are addressed.
There's a
It's that way on
list
every
of stuff
plat.
that they have to submit, bonding for 2 years of the improvements, we gotta have the lien waivers, all of that stuff has to be submitted before it can be done too. And what we would need to see is the bond that we have on this project is sufficient to cover what they say. I can tell you that we've had a little trouble with this company arguing with bonds after they've filed them before. We're not gonna argue about bonds once we get them filed, correct?
And the bottom line is if they don't sign off on it, they can't get any certificates of occupancy, so
They
it
can't
doesn't
get any
matter.
building permits.
Yeah, can't get building permits,
They can't get building
anything, so
permits, that's
they're dead in the water until they comply.
That's pretty unusual. We usually don't have this much confrontation on these, do we?
Well, no, because typically a PUD, once it's accepted, everybody understands what the requirements are, and folks follow through on it. I understand, there's a change in ownership, but when you buy a PUD, you buy the existing PUD and the requirements. So, I think that's where some of the confusion came in, that some folks wanted to reinterpret some of the clauses, but you can't do that without complying with the original PUD document.
And it's usual. Most every final plat that comes through, the ones you guys did tonight, once they get everything on there, Ben checks it, he signs it, the water department has to sign it. I have to sign it, I'm always the last one to sign, Ben has to sign it. Once we know everything's done, then we sign it, and then they take it and have it. That's not an unusual process.
I have
We do
signed
that
it.
all the time.
I have
Mayor
signed
has
it
to
if
sign
that
it,
makes you feel any better.
And
That's
Denise has
scary.
to sign it. But I'm always the last one to sign to make sure everything's there before we actually let it go forward to be filed. Yep. So
Based
we're
on-
good doing this one that way.
Based on apparently the accommodations that have been made, I move to approve the appeal of the Planning Commission's denial, and also to move that the ordinance be accepted.
We need to read the title first.
Let me read, it's an ordinance accepting the final plat of cottages at Clear Creek subdivision Phase 2 to the city of Springfield, Arkansas, and declaring emergency.
Ditto what I just said.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. I got a question for the guys in the booth. They've combined 10 and 11 in one item. Is that, We can go to 11 and that'll satisfy it? Okay.
Yeah, I think if you approve.
All right,
the
everybody
ordinance,
clear?
That'll effectively
All right.
overturn.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I just want to say, hey, I appreciate our planning department, and I appreciate our planning commission for doing their due diligence, for trying to protect this city. We should not be here, but we are here, okay? But I really appreciate our planning department, our planning commission for doing their due diligence.
Patsy, what about when we were here in July, you showed us pictures of those steps going up to the house, and you said, this is not what we thought we were going to get. And you were showing us things that you were uncomfortable with and that didn't seem.
Well, they're not fixing any of that, but I can guarantee you the next phase that they're doing will not have that same situation. We will make sure the construction plans, when we get them, addresses that issue. And it got through, and I don't think anybody realized what it was and how bad it was going to be until after it was built. But we will be more careful on phase 4 and not let that happen again. I don't know that there's anything we can do to fix it. I wish we could, because I think that's just a really bad situation. I would hope that the developer would work with those property owners and see if they could do something with it, but I don't think there's anything we can do with it, but we will not let that happen. We learned a lesson. Every PUD, we seem to learn more lessons and tie it down a little tighter. So I told the next people who came in the other day, sorry, but it's going to be tighter than it was last time, because we learned a lot on this one again too, so. Yeah.
Is that going to be a maintenance issue for the city?
Well, those are privately owned lots, and so those property owners are going to have to keep those lots mowed, and it may be an issue for code enforcement.
Maybe an
but it's
issue
not
for code enforcement.
It's
Yeah.
not for planning.
Let's just put wild grass there.
Good
Mr.
idea.
Watson, just not to belabor the point, but that was phase 1, which is now long past. But I think I can represent on behalf of my client that with respect to phases 3 and 4, that's, we've taken that into consideration, and we are certainly going to address that issue moving forward so that we can work in tandem with planning and not in opposition to them.
Okay, thank you. Is it, anyone in the audience need to speak before we vote? All right, call for the vote.
Carries 7-1. It does have an emergency clause.
Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Got a motion and a second for the emergency clause. Call for the vote.
Well,
Whoop, whoop,
I'll
whoop.
ask, what's the emergency if we're waiting on staff to have to sign off anyway?
Well, so go ahead and get started now, because it's going to take a while, and, I know it's taken a while, but also, they do have some construction deadlines too, and it's better to go ahead and let the planning phase go on so they find out if they're going to fish or cut bait.
Yeah. Well, we are voting right now.
Emergency clause fails, takes 6 votes to have emergency clause, the mayor can't vote on emergency clause. So the ordinance is going to effect. I'm sorry, I didn't have the button pushed. I'm learning from Mr. Watson over here. I got to press the button. Emergency clause does not pass because it requires 6 votes, and the mayor's not allowed to vote on the emergency clause. So the ordinance will go into effect for 30 days, but that doesn't mean y'all can't go ahead and get
that same
to
work-
work addressing these comments. So.
Same work can be done, just not physically. All right, thank you. Item 12, Finance Committee Chairwoman Amelia Taldo. Amelia?
Thank you, Mayor. All items were forwarded to the committee with recommendation for approval. And item A is a resolution of intent regarding the Western Corridor Transmission Main Project, and this is presented by Heath Ward and Rick Pulverenti from Springdale Water Utilities.
Thank you, ma'am. As the As underscored by Mr. Siegel earlier, there's a significant amount of activity, especially in the western part of our city. And through our planning process for the last decade, we have recognized eventually there would be a great need for more water and a more robust system on the west side of Springdale. As a result, Beaver Water District has started their extension from their plant with a 60-inch line that will be located, go to a pump station, basically across from Shaw Elementary. From there, Springdale Water Utilities will be putting in a 48-inch line that will dogleg, basically head east along Shaw Elementary, go through some commission property, and basically go down the 56th Street route where it will tie into other existing utilities at Elm Springs Road, ultimately what's the word I'm looking for? Being made a more robust system by the addition of a water tank near the Nazarene Church, which will house 3 million gallons elevated to supply adequate pressures and fire protection and redundancy for our city in the very far future. As part of this project, initial costs were estimated probably in the mid-20s of millions of dollars. But ever since we've had construction inflation, as the council knows, looking at other bond projects in the city, that dollar does not buy you what it does. Therefore, we are looking probably anywhere from $40 to $50 million to do the pipeline. The water utility will be paying for the construction of the tank with cash out of its existing reserves. However, because of economic conditions, we have been forced to ask to borrow money from the Arkansas Department of Natural Resources at a fair rate today of about 4%. And we could not get that on the open bond market. I know that the council graciously passed the resolution or the recommendation to forward it to full council last time. However, there were questions regarding the language in the actual document. And what we assured the council is we would have Mr. Shep Russell and our city attorney, Mr. Cate, get together and remedy those things. So unless the council's got questions for me specifically, I was going to invite Mr. Russell to come up and answer any questions that the council or the staff may have about this resolution or any of the other language associated with it.
Just to note that the resolution that's in the packet, the section 1, that does contain the new language, which I think we're much more comfortable with. Shep's here.
Shep, any questions for
Council
Mr.
members.
Russell?
I did prepare the resolution, which is a requirement to borrow money from the revolving loan fund the state operates. If you're going to spend your own money before you close your bond issue, there's going to be some funds advanced in this case, and it was important that the utility be able to recoup the money that it advances out of the loan when it closes, probably sometime next year. And I think, as I was reported, that, the way I drafted the resolution, it's a city water and sewer system. The city owns it, city money. I should have put at the beginning that it was water and sewer money that's going to be used to make these preliminary costs, and the bonds will reimburse it. So I think should hopefully is clear at this point in the resolution.
Shep, aren't they using the existing cash to front the construction? Then they have this loan coming from the state. I don't understand about a bond then, because are they not operating with existing cash up front for initiation of the construction?
I better let Heath answer that question.
Essentially, we have not. We went out and got pricing. We've started the work on the tower because we're paying cash for it. But however, what we won't really reimburse for is the engineering and the geotech work that took to get us to this point where we have plans.
But you don't pay that out of operating cash up front and then being reimbursed by the loan you're getting?
Essentially, yes, that's what we want to do. We want to be able to recoup that back from the loan because we basically, in our financial plan, have those monies earmarked for other things in our system.
Yeah, I understand that, but where I'm just confused at is the role of a bond, because you're getting a loan from the state to cover the 50 million on construction. It looks to me like you're just, I don't know where a bond is really coming in.
Well, we basically, if we don't get the bond for the construction, we're not going to build a pipeline. We don't have the reserves to do that. What we have done is we have fronted the money to get the plans done, therefore we can get the pricing done on the project. And what we're doing is basically taking the money we spent on engineering fees, not on pipe, not on construction, not on turning dirt, but to get, say, 90% plans so we can put this out to bid, and we can then get a final price on it and begin the construction on it.
Yeah, but has not the state already guaranteed you they're going to give you 50 million, or is that an if?
That is technically an if, but we're fairly certain we will get the $50 million for the project.
So the bond would come in case you don't get the loan, is that what you're?
Well, it's from a legal standpoint, I probably can't explain this very well, but basically, to go through this process and get the loan money, we got to have this resolution. Or if we don't have the resolution as part of the process, then we will not get the loan from A&RD. Does
Oh, I
that make
understand. The
sense?
city has to sign off on it because
Correct.
you're
It's basically a
you're an
guarantor.
adjunct of the city. I was just
correct.
confused where the term, the bond, came in. That's my confusion.
Essentially, I believe the city becomes the guarantor of the bond if we go belly up, but we're not planning on that.
I know, but we haven't floated a bond. All we're doing is we're guaranteeing your loan. We're not floating a bond.
Is that correct, Mr. Shepherd? That they're basically guaranteeing this?
Well, the water and sewer system is, you're obligating the water and sewer system money to pay this bond back, which
We're
is,
obligating the revenue they take in to pay back this loan.
that's correct. And
Yeah,
they're delaying.
I'm just confused of the term, where we're throwing a bond in,
Well,
because
the-
we're just guaranteeing a loan.
Right. Well, they're making it'd be like the bank agreeing to loan the money, and you don't want to close on the loan for a while, and you're going to advance some of your own money up front, but you're going to need to recoup it out of the loan. This bond, most bond issues, you're selling the bonds, you get all the money, put it in the bank, you start paying interest on it. This type of bond from the state, which is kind of like a construction loan, you only pay interest on what you draw down. So they're waiting until they actually need the money, have to have the money before they take it down and have to start paying interest. So, and to do all that, to be able to do it, they have to comply with the state rules, which is the adoption of this resolution. That's kind of it.
I understand the process. I'm just really confused why we're even saying a bond, unless they're going to they need to have some, another bond loan for the money that they're fronting, because I thought they were operating just out of their operating revenues that they have to pay for the engineering, et cetera. And then as they draw down on the loan, they're paying themselves back, because that's all part of the cost of the $50 million project.
Right. I think there's also going to be some equipment that's ordered, and they have to, in order to, they know they're going to have this loan, and so this being the first step in the process, it's important for them to be able to do that also. So.
Sounds like this also keeps the process moving forward before this $50 million project becomes a $70 million project.
That's correct. And like Mr. Shepherd said, there is some equipment with long lead times that we'll have to front some money for to make this thing. It's very complicated, because we also got to make it time out right with Beaver Water District completing their stuff in 2026.
And
the improvements on 56th Street. So we're trying to juggle 4 or 5 things at once to get the best bang for our buck and to hit the finish line on time with Beaver to the north.
Move
We're not the only
resolution be
city with the
adopted.
same challenge. Fayetteville's got the same challenges we do right now.
Move the resolution be adopted.
Second. Got a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any other questions or comments? Anyone in the room? Okay, call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
I thank the council. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm moving on. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Heath.
Item 12B is a resolution authorizing the grant of a water easement and sewer easement across property owned by the city of Springdale, Washington County, Arkansas. This is presented by Greg Thomas from Garver.
Hello, my name is Greg Thomas with Garver. We're the engineer for the airport. The agenda item today is just to dedicate 2 easements, water and sewer easements, on airport property, which is city-owned. These easements are associated with 2 hangar projects. One's off of 265. They're on the east side. That's a recently completed city-owned hangar. The other hangar projects on the west side, they're off of Powell Street for a hangar that's currently under construction. The easements will be required to run water and sewer lines to provide water and sewer services for these buildings, as well as place hydrants for fire suppression. So I'm happy to answer any
I
questions.
move the resolution that item 12B be adopted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further comments or questions? Anyone? Roll call, or call for the vote?
Carries 7-0 with 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item 12C is a resolution authorizing an amendment to the professional services agreement for North 56th Street Extension. This will be presented by Colby Fulfer.
Yeah, I think we're mixed up.
Or Ryan Carr.
Or Ben Peters.
Or Ben Peters. Whoever wants to take this.
We scared Ryan off last time.
Ryan actually came in to do this, and he pulled a muscle in his back, so I sent him home so he could rest and hopefully be here tomorrow, so I'm going to take this for him. This is a resolution to amend the contract with Olson for materials testing and for construction services for the 56th Street project, which dovetails into everything you just talked about with the water transmission line. And this is for a value of $657,140 to be paid for out of 2023 street bond.
Move the resolution be
Second.
adopted.
Motion and a second to approve. Any other questions or comments? All right, call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
Ben, you're really not that much better than Ryan, but you got off a lot easier for some reason.
Okay, item 12D is a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract for professional services with Garver LLC for grant research and writing assistance for submission of a grant application for funding under the U.S. Department of Transportation Reconnecting Communities Pilot Program. And this, unfortunately, Colby, I'm sorry, is also presented by Patsy Christie.
I would let Kobe handle it. That's fine for me. As we talked about at the committee meeting, this is a grant for up to $2 million for planning what we could do with Highway 71 as a barrier between the east and west sides. I can tell you, we've started soliciting support letters from various groups in the city and receiving a tremendous amount of support for the idea. Businesses, the school district. It's amazing how many people think we really need to do something about not having that barrier of Highway 71. And that's what this is for.
I was in a meeting today with our congressional delegation's DC staff. And I don't know, are we seeking support letters from any of our congressional delegations?
I was going to talk to Steve while he's at home. I haven't contacted him yet, but I will.
Okay. Well, they
Which staff-
reiterated that they
which
would be
staff was
happy to. You could start with, I would just start with Jordan and he could get it to the right place. For-
Okay,
That's
we
for
can do that.
WAMEX staff. And
Yeah.
and we've got the other staff too. that-
Okay, I had talked to Steve about it earlier, and he told me just let him know when
Yeah.
we were ready.
Yeah, it was a room full, and they were talking about several different grant opportunities. This was one of them. Fayetteville was in the room also talking about their experience in several years ago, taking over 71B from RDOT, and of course, they've got a different type of grant that they're spending on it.
Yeah,
But,
they have raised money, or.
Yeah, they
raised
had
grant
a
for
raise
that,
grant, yeah.
Move the resolution be adopted.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any other comments or questions? All right, call for the vote.
Carry 7-0 with one abstention.
You jumped the gun a few times up there.
Yep. He got a lot of camera time for one agenda item.
Item 12E is the resolution authorizing the purchase of budgeting software for the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and this is presented by Colby Fulford, Chief of Staff.
My apologies. Been working on budget the last 2 days, and the numbers are staggering, so I'm out of sorts. This is the budgeting software that we presented last week. Cody's unable to be here tonight. There was a question asked about this, how much of a fee increases are supposed to be, and the next year it would be a 4% increase as opposed to us buying it outright. We'd rather test drive this to make sure it's what we want to do before we outright purchase the entire thing. So this is going to get us updated. We still use Excel, and we really need to update how we propose our budgets and bring them forward to you. So this will help us get up to date on that process.
Move the resolution be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Other questions or comments? Call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
That closes finance.
All right, thank you, Amelia. Committee of the Whole, anybody want to take that as one item? And if not, I can read the ordinance. Oh, we do?
Yeah, item 13B is an ordinance amending Chapter 110, Article 6, the Code of Ordinances, City of Springdale, Arkansas. Pursuant to the ordinance, we have to hold a public hearing before we can entertain a motion to pass the ordinance. So is there anyone here that wishes to comment besides Mr. Overton? If not, I will close the public hearing. I can entertain a motion to
So moved.
pass the ordinance as read.
Has the ordinance been read?
I read.
Good job. Any other comments or questions? We have a motion and a second.
It does not have an emergency clause.
All right, call for the vote.
Be told. 7-0 with one abstention.
All right.
The last item is an ordinance authorizing the city clerk to file a cleanup lien for the removal of overgrown brush and debris on property located within the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and declaring an emergency. This is on property located at 608 East Allen.
Move ordinance passed.
Second.
A motion second to approve. We have anyone needs to speak to this item, this address? Any other questions, council? All right. Call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
Move emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Vote.
Emergency clause carries 8-0. Now Finley can go on vacation.
All right. That takes us to any comments from department heads?
Mayor, I just wanted to let the council know that we did receive 2 grants recently, totaling a little over $900,000 that Congressman Womack helped us receive. They're going to go to the airport tower and grooving of the runway, so we appreciate his efforts on that.
Going to put more butterflies on it?
That's up to you.
We need them.
All right. Council, any comments? City attorney?
No, sir.
Me either. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.